I said fuck it. I'm recording chapter 6. This chapter looks to be a little longer. I'm also waiting for my fucking tea to cool. Oh wait, did I open up OBS? Or not OBS, CapCut. I did not open a new project. I should do that. Anyway, this is Black Cats Are Bad Luck and So Are You, Kid, by Holly. Chapter 6. Fuck Mr. Ozawa, actually. The man should go throw himself into a river. He grumbled at the man in the front seat as the other shifted nervously. The raven-haired seemed rather pleased with himself. Why do we have to do this? The blonde asked the man in the passenger seat. I don't trust him. Also, we are going into a police station, so his protection. We are about to talk to a dangerous criminal, the other replied. Zuko meowed loudly and angrily. Meow! Meow! He did not need to be stuck in a cat carrier. He was a person! He already had to eat cat food for the past 2 days. Now this? The boy glared at the man up front, who was grinning. Normally, this would be scary, but Izuku had seen the man making out with his other beside him and making so many sex jokes, along with the cursing. The boy's perception of the man was ruined. The fear was gone. His tail flicked and hit the sides of the cat carrier hard as the blonde continued to drive, making the man flinch. Are you sure that's Izuku? The blonde looked at him through the rear view mirror, and Izuku didn't look at him, but continued to glare at the smug man in the passenger seat. Positive. The blonde sighed and kept looking at the road. If you say so. Zuko huffed and meowed at the man, asking for freedom. Meow! 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 But the benevolent man just smirked more and put his face into his capture weapon. Zuko sighed and flopped onto his side, his tail thumping up and down. They eventually arrived at the police station, and Izawa carried Izuku and his carrier inside. To Izuku's great disdain, though the boy was kind of glad for it, and as the hustle and bustle of the police station spooked him. His increased senses overloaded with different smells, sights, and sounds. He backed into the carrier, closer to his teacher, whose warmth he could feel through the cheap plastic of the carrier. The two others kept walking through the yelling men in shining cuffs, the smell of coffee and exhaustion, the grumbling and slouched officers, the people running around hurriedly to get somewhere. Zuko covered his ears with his paws and closed his eyes, holding his breath and waiting until the carrier thumped and stopped swaying. And Zuko opened his eyes again. In front of him was a man with dark hair and blue eyes. He stood up and spoke over the carrier to someone above him. So this is your kid? Yep. The man tapped the top of the carrier a few times and leaned down to look inside. Hello, Izuku. Izuku took his paw and flapped it up and down a few times to indicate waving. The man's eyes widened and he stood up again. Well, he definitely understands us at the very least. Yes, we're aware. Didn't want to leave him. Can I talk to the bastard? Hey, watch your goddamn language around your kid. Someone else piped in from beside him. Hey, watch your fucking language. Don't tell me to watch my fucking language. Hey, stop fucking cursing. Why must I suffer like this? His teacher drawled. The two were arguing began to laugh. The man in front of the carrier bending down and clutching his stomach. Zuko peeked through the holes in the side of the carrier to see the other person. It was a man with a cat head, which made the fur on Izuku's neck stand on end. His English teacher was standing to the side nervously, and he turned to see his raven-haired teacher standing close to his carrier, so Izuku could see his face. Izuku huffed and smacked the side of the carrier, meowing at the man. Meow! Meow! Mr. Ozawa! Let me out! The cat man snorted behind him and spoke up. He's not very happy. Can you understand him? Zuko could feel the man's displeasure. Just because I have a cat head does not mean I can understand cats. Even humans turned cats. I can just kind of tell his emotions. I was just wondering, you've never talked about it before. Never came up in conversation. His English teacher sighed and spoke up. While this is endearing and all, shouldn't we be interrogating the villain? The dark-haired officer spoke up. We are just waiting on one of my other officers to give the guy the rundown. Then he'll come in and Azawa and I will go in to interrogate him. You will all watch from behind the window. Zuko meowed and pawed at the carrier. Meow, meow. Including you as well, Zuko. Don't worry. The boy meowed again and stuck his paw out of the box, trying to convey the fact he wanted out. Meow! Meow! The box was stuffy and made him feel claustrophobic. The Catman spoke up again. He's upset, uncomfortable, and a little scared. All that from a meow? Dark-Haired Man said with a wide grin. The cat began to bristle and glared at him playfully. Shut your bitch! He was interrupted by Azawa sighing and reached forward to open the carrier, talking lowly to Izuku. Stay near us, don't wander, and don't get into trouble. Zuko nodded and walked out of the carrier, stretching happily and curling his tail in the air. He could feel the men around him stiffen. You brought a black cat here? It's my kid. It's bad luck, is what it is. Zuko glared at who he now saw as Detective Sakachi, and the cat being his partner, though that didn't make up for the man's statement. Zuko huffed and flicked his tail at the man, eyes narrowing. The man backed up off nervously and chuckled. Are you sure that's a Zuko? Never seen him glare like that before. Yes, and I have. Zuko turned to look at the teacher, who was watching Sukachi with a tired expression. I have no doubts. I'm honestly disappointed we didn't see it earlier. It came from the same spot as Zuko disappeared. Ran up to me and Hazashi and appeared same time we lost Zuko. Also, his eyes are literally the same color as Zuko. Trust me, I have looked at them all the time because this is a trouble magnet. And when he gets scolded, he makes sure to look you in the eyes. The man patted Izuku's small back and looked down at him. The boy looked up at the man with mock annoyance at his quip, but it was just made the man smile and nod a bit at the boy. This is my kid. Izuku sighed and relaxed before nodding up at the man, knowing his points were valid and not made in hate or actual disdain. He began to purr, butting his head into the man's arm. Zukuachi sighed and shrugged. I mean, the evidence is there. His homeroom teacher nodded. Indeed. The four men went quiet for a while, Zuko eventually crawling up his teacher's arm to hide in his capture scarf again. The man sighed but relented, allowing Zuko to hide within the warmth. After about 10 more minutes, someone knocked at the door and came in. He's ready for you all. Azuka was set back in the cage and given to his English teacher, and they all began to walk down the halls again. Azuka was sat on a table in a dark room, where he could see the window. Inside was a man and he saw just before he was flung into the forest, looking nervous and frightened. Zuko felt bad for the man, but also wanted to know what happened. Zuko lay down in the dark carrier and watched through the wire door as his teacher and detective walked into the room, making the other man stiffen. The detective sat down in front of the man, while his teacher stood to the side, behind the detective. The man in front of them gulped as Sukachi pulled out a file of papers. Mr. Yamamoto, correct? The man nodded. Verbal response, please. Yes, I am. The man nervously stuttered out. Zukachi sighed and nodded. Good. We were told you could tell us about what happened to the green-haired boy during your capture. The man nodded and gulped. They're probably gonna kill me anyway, if or when I get released, but it's my quirk, sir. Elaborate, please. I can turn people into cats for as many days as they are old. So how old they are relates to how long they stay cats? Correct. And their color relates to my mood. Sakachi nodded and wrote all of that down. Suka looked over to see his teacher relax and watching the scene carefully. Now, who are they? The man began to explain, but his English teacher grabbed him and his carrier and took him from the room, back to the car. Zuko wanted to know what was going on, but he thought it might be better to hold off for the time being. Now, who are they? Tsukachi asked the man. Azawa perked up, curious to hear more background behind all of this madness, though the man stiffened and shook his head, his voice getting louder. No, no, no. You just said the information about the kid. Nothing about that. No, 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 no. Okay, okay, calm down. Calm down. Tsukachi gently waved his arms and leaned back. We did say that. I will keep my word. I was just curious and heard you say it. The man took a large gulp of air and nodded, relaxing only slightly. Tsukachi stood and grabbed all his paper. Thank you, Mr. Yamamoto. We'll be in touch. Tsukachi bowed and left the room, Zawa close behind. The man took him back to the room they had been in before and sat down along with Sansa. So we at least know where your kid is. For sure, at least. Zawa nodded. Yep, now we have another mystery. I want to run background checks on all the new hires. Something doesn't feel right. Sansa said and Sakachi nodded. Might as well double check. Until then, there is the question of where the boy will stay and alerting his mother. I'll take care of his mother. I'll call her shortly. Sounds good, Azawa. 20 minutes later, Zawa walked out of the station, trudging along to the car and hopping in. He rested his head on the headrest and groaned. His English teacher put his hands on the man's shoulder and questioned him. What happened? The man turned his head and eye to the side and grinned. So, Zuga's mother is apparently allergic to cats, and I figured it would be a good idea to keep him close for the rest of the time he's a cat. So, we are taking him home? The man nodded and looked at Izuku. If that's okay with him, then yes, he will be. Izuku nodded at the man, but didn't see the point in going somewhere else. And he trusted the two teachers. The man nodded and reached back to pat the top of the carrier a few times. It's settled then. And that's the end of chapter 6. I'm probably not going to record chapter 7 today, because I'm a little tired and I got on my PC kind of late. It's already 9. And I stopped recording yesterday around 9, so I'm gonna hold off. I was right about this episode being a little longer. It's gonna be a little longer than 13 minutes. So, kind of like the third longest at the moment, but I mean, we got 2 6-minute episodes, so that's not really an achievement right now. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. And I'm sorry for all the stuttering, because holy fuck, stutters are killing me. Anyway, bye!